A plane just what? The 737? It what? Like the World Trade Center. Who are you talking to? Oh, God.
We could not move any further into the presentation without acknowledging the importance of today. 20 years ago, the nation watched as planes hijacked by terrorists crashed into the World Trade Center in New York City, the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, on September 11, 2001. The events of that day forever transformed the country. Today, we remember those who lost their lives and all of those who gave their lives. We remember. May we never forget, forever in our hearts.
Hey everybody, welcome to our, what month is this? September, man, this year is going by really fast. Welcome to our September office hours presentation. Thank you all for joining. I am Dr. Amber. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen me flood your timelines with all of my shenanigans this week in preparation for this amazing group of panelists that we have for today. So I want to get right into just talking about our tech careers, talking about our paths and just how we got into this amazing space. So we'll start out with some introductions, and I'll let the panelists tell you all a little bit about themselves.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon. I'm Erica Plybeah. I am the founder of a health tech startup called MedHall. It's a marketplace that makes it easy for healthcare providers to find and book transportation for special needs patients. And we identify special needs as patients in low-income communities, elderly patients, and patients with physical and intellectual disabilities. I'm from Greenwood, Mississippi, so very excited to be here. I actually didn't start my career in tech, I guess sort of like the traditional way. I went to the University of Wisconsin. My goal was to be a pharmacist at that time. And after I left college, I worked in a few different pharmacy realms, in the hospital, in retail pharmacy. And I ended up transitioning from the pharmacy to the clinical informatics or healthcare IT department of the hospital, really to help with a new clinical software that was coming to our health system. And I kind of got addicted to it. And fast forward 9 years later, I'm still in tech and I never went to pharmacy school. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm currently based in Memphis and excited to be here.
Hey guys, good afternoon. My name is Sadain Danka. I'm an entrepreneur in tech, real estate and construction. I'm currently based out in Central Mississippi. I live on Ridgely, Mississippi by the reservoir. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I started out in tech. I worked after college, I got a job here in Mississippi for a tech company, do a lot of the marketing for them and help them, achieve a lot of goals that was set. And then after that, I decided to start my own real estate company and do a lot of the tech marketing for them. And, flipping houses, rental property. And then eventually we just started a construction company, which currently we are a GC here in Mississippi and also in California and Texas as well. So, but yeah, mostly my background started in tech and eventually from tech lead on to real estate and construction. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Hey everybody, my name is Tori Hargro. I am born and raised in Port Gibson, Mississippi. I went to school at Alcorn State University. So go Braves, we're gonna win that SWAC championship again. I have, for the last 7 years, worked for Facebook. I started off there as a design manager. The project that I led was Facebook Live, which a lot of you may have heard of and been a part of. One of the co-creators of Facebook Watch, our video platform. And for the last 2 years, I've worked in inclusive design, or trying to reformulate and rethink the way we do design at Facebook, and have some influence in the way we do it in tech broadly. I got into tech in high school when my dad brought us our first computer, a $200 HP compact Presario, Black Friday, Walmart, shout out. And I was 15 years old. And from there, just taught myself through sheer curiosity, HTML and JavaScript, and did front end dev, and then got picked up by our radio station at Alcorn, WPRL, to do their website, as well as doing some financial development. My major in school was business. From there, I went over to the Tribune Company and did web development for them. Then finally, USA Today, where I went from a designer to a design manager for the editorial newsroom. And from there, I was picked up by Facebook. So I'm super excited to be here and talk to folks about Path to Tech and what that journey's been like on the corporate side.
Thank you all so much for your introductions. So I think we may be having some technical difficulties. I heard Tori say something about Alcorn and being amazing. I don't know, but just a little bit about myself. I am a Jackson, Mississippi native. I am a proud graduate of the I Love Jackson State University. Yes, we are coming for that SWAC championship this year. I went to Purdue, where I became the first Black woman to earn a PhD in computer science from Purdue. And so I'm excited to be the moderator of this panel, as well as be a panelist. So let's jump right into it. All right, so I want to know about your first job. So you all have done a lot of things, and it sounds like you've touched a lot of different areas in tech and pioneered a lot of areas. But what was that first college job like? I guess we can start with Tori. I'll let him proclaim himself, from that statement he made.
Yeah, totally. I forgive you, Tiger. So here's the deal. I'll go 2 different directions. One, I don't talk about that often because of how I think about that job in retrospect, and the one that I think is really important. First thing to note, like a lot of people who come from a lower socioeconomic background, I've been working since I could work. I think in Mississippi at the time, it was legal to work at 15, I think. And so I got my first job at 15. And that was as a bag boy working at a local grocery store in Port Gibson. I learned a lot from that job. And I just considered that working was a part of life. I've always seen both my parents work. It was just what you did. I wasn't expected to contribute to the household bills, but I might as well, because they kept track of everything I made during that time period. But getting into college, I went to Alcorn on scholarship. I was fortunate enough to do that. But also, while running my company, just happened to have a college roommate who was a back-end dev. So we built websites, was pretty much how we made it through college. But before that took off, our freshman year, I worked Christmas and holidays at McRae's, which was a department store in Vicksburg, which no longer exists, but out by Belts. And I just worked on the docks. I unloaded boxes. Like that's what I did. I was there every morning at 4 a.m., working 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. every holiday. So, for extra money and just to bootstrap, and I didn't think too much about it. That's just what I did. And then my first job in college, I got an internship on Capitol Hill, working for the United States Senate Majority Leader, which was Mississippi and Trent Lott at the time. A lot of people may remember that a couple of decades ago, but he was a very influential politician in the country. And the reason why I got that job is that Alcorn was going through the Ayers case. And if you guys remember the Ayers case, that was Mississippi's HBCUs suing the state of Mississippi because of chronic underfunding for Black schools. And our president at the time, Dr. Clinton Bristow Jr., who's since passed, an amazing man who recruited me to Alcorn, he decided that the best way to demonstrate the value of HBCUs was to send students to the senator's office to intern. Like, we'll show you the kind of product we produce, and therefore you'll agree with this case. And so I went to Capitol Hill, knew nothing about politics, knew nothing about any of that stuff, and learned a lot. And the primary thing I learned was I never wanted a career in politics. That's the primary thing I learned. But beside the point, it did do a lot for me to understand the ways that the world works, to understand how political influence works, to understand the historical quandaries that Black universities find themselves in, of supporting a community that no one else, frankly, has a lot of faith and credibility in, and needing to show up in an excellent way. to proceed. So I learned a lot from that experience. It was very interesting and unique, but I would say I learned more. The more of the long lasting impact of my life was that job at McRae's, just being dependable and reliable and doing it day in and day out.
Nice. Thank you. So Tori, all right. So I think people sleep on like the whole, just how tech works, about coding, just the whole environment, and thinking like, oh, we start in these careers and we automatically know these things. But no, like you just said, you were working on the dock, unloading boxes. Like that's engineering, right? That's processes. These are things that we do, problem solving, things that we do every day. So I'm sure you've taken, and we're going to get into that, taking a lot of those things you've learned in those jobs, previous jobs, and applied them to what you're doing now. Thank you so much for your answer. Okay, so Erica, what was your first job out of college, and what was that transition like?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I wanted to be a pharmacist. So everything that I did was related to pharmacy. And I'll take a step back like Tori did and talk about sort of my first job because, you know, same, I started working when I was 15 or 16 years old. I got a job as a hostess at a restaurant in Greenwood. And it was funny because a lot of people were like, well, I don't think they're going to hire you because they don't really hire Black girls or, you know, whatever. That's just how it was. So I was like, no, like, I'm going to get the job. Like, I've always been the type, like, when somebody tells me that I can't do something or that I see it as like a challenge. And so I'm like, no, I deserve to work there because that's where I want to work. I don't want to work at McDonald's. I don't want to work at Pizza Inn, which there was nothing wrong with any of those places. I just wanted to work at that particular restaurant because I liked the vibe. It just fit more with what I wanted to do at that time. And I was just kind of extra. Like, since people told me that I couldn't do it, I just wanted to do it. So, but I think just with that job and my first job, like right out of college, which I'll talk about a little bit more, I think what helped me most was in that role was learning how to talk to people. Like, I'm an extreme introvert. I don't like talking to people. I don't like being around people and stuff a lot. So that role, being the hostess role, and I was also a waitress. So that taught me how to like socialize and how to talk to people. It also taught me how to stand up for myself because, you know, I had some incidences where, you know, I had to talk to the owner about like my hours, or, you know, she would try to like take over my schedule. Like if I'm supposed to be off, she would try to like bully me into coming. And I've never been one that you could bully well, but I always, it forced me to have to stand up for myself early. So yeah, so just to talk about that, and then transition to undergrad and after undergrad. So I majored in biology, pre-medical track in hopes of going to pharmacy school. After undergrad, I took a year off really to like study for the PCAT, just get a break. And I also moved to DC, Washington, DC from Wisconsin, because Wisconsin was just very interesting. So I was working in a hospital pharmacy, and I heard about this new technology coming to the health system. The technology is called Epic. It's an electronic medical record, which is essentially just software that houses all of our data, like our labs, our medications, our diagnoses, all these doctors' notes, all of that. That technology was headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin, which is where I went to undergrad. So all of the hospitals that I worked in undergrad had that same technology. So I was very used to using it. I was like a super user. I trained a lot of the clinical staff how to use the technology. So once I moved to DC after undergrad, and I saw that these hospitals were transitioning to this new platform, I thought, hey, it would be cool to get like involved in this project. And that would also help me improve my resume for pharmacy school. At least that was what I was thinking at the time. So I transferred from the pharmacy department to the clinical informatics department to help with the build and the implementation of this new technology platform. I also trained over hundreds at that point of doctors, oncologists, mostly pharmacists, oncology nurses, on how to use the platform, specifically if they were related to like medication orders or drug orders. So I did that for about a year and a half. And like I said before, I just got like addicted. I've always loved technology. I've always loved computers, but I've always loved medicine. So I didn't think that I could find a way to sort of like mesh the two. And then since I don't have a traditional technology background, I didn't think that I could ever get in tech either. So it was a really cool experience. So I went from pharmacy tech to like technical project manager, if you will. Did that for a year and a half. And then after we implemented the software at 5 hospitals and 92 clinics across that health system, I decided then like I was going to take health tech and run with it. So I started consulting for that specifically that technology vendor, Epic. Did that for a few years, and then I got recruited to a Google Ventures backed healthcare startup, and that was sort of like my introduction to the venture backed technology space. So
nice. So I actually lived in Indiana. That's where I went to grad school. So yes, I understand. I think I understand what you mean about Wisconsin, and it's a lot different from Mississippi. I want to hear more about the medicine and how you got into that. That's actually what my dissertation was on, like medicine, healthcare in tech. But I want to get to Dan. So Dan, can you tell us about your first job out of college and what the transition was like?
Yeah, definitely. I can go back a little bit. I always been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. Love business. Just been a hustler since I was a kid. I can turn an idea to a business and make money out of it.
Nice.
So I've been doing that. Well, in college, I went to school for pre-med. I was in pre-med program at the University of Minnesota, Twin City. I was going to go to med school and also the MBA program to do to get my sorry, my nephew's in the background. But yeah, so I went to school for pre-med and also business at the same time at University of Minnesota, Twin City. I dropped out of college because I feel like they didn't really teach me as much. They was just a little bit slower than what I expected. So I dropped out of college. I told my mom they're not teaching me fast enough. I didn't learn enough. So I dropped out of school. Then I found digital marketing online, web design, digital marketing, something that I can make money online. So that's what really got me into tech, honestly. So I did that for like 2 years. But at the same time, my mom wanted me to get a bachelor's degree. So I went back to school and get a degree in individualized study because I did, because I didn't want to go back to school and do business, because it's going to take me another 4 years. So I was like, okay, let's figure out a degree that I can do, I can get quickly. So then, my family, my mom, because I grew up in an Asian family, so we have to have some kind of bachelor's degrees or something, to show. So I got a degree in individualized study, which is combining business and science. Right after college, I got a job offer here in Mississippi for a tech company as the head of the marketing, which was really impressive because what I can show them, what I was able to do with Facebook ads and Instagram ad, Google SEO, PPC and all that stuff for them to, So that's how I got a job down here in Tex. But one of the clients that I helped out was US Legal Forum. That was the main clients that I focused on improving the SEO, PPC, and marketing. So that's my first job after college. So
nice. So all right. So my very first job out of college, I have to really think about this because I did a lot of stuff. I played sports in college, so I actually had to. I did internships pretty late. So I think I went right into research as a grad student. So I went straight through with all of my schooling. I did work at an ice cream shop though. There was a whole lot of weight that I gained, but I went straight into research. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. So my very first research internship was at Mississippi Valley State University, another SWAC school that Jackson State is going to give the business to. That's not what we're here though. So I was at Valley and I was working on bioinformatics and I hated it. I hated bioinformatics because I did not like the biology part. Fast forward to my PhD where I actually ended up doing some kind of bioinformatics work, which is hilarious. But that was my very first, I guess, kind of job, something I was getting paid for. At the time, I was also working at FedEx. So yes, Tori, I feel you. I'm working on the dock and pushing these boxes. That is not what I wanted to do. And I don't know if I've picked up a box since then. All right. So we talked a little bit about like right after college, and we kind of got into some of our careers. I want to talk about the very first interview. And this can be, I kind of want to center it around like the technical interview. So maybe you had a coding challenge, or maybe you, I don't know, just had a personality test. And so I'm gonna start with Dan. Dan, do you remember your very first like interview in tech and what that was like?
So I always been unique in my way of doing an interview, because I know if I just show up with my resume, then they're gonna hire me. So what I did was I do a presentation of what I was able to accomplish on Facebook, and that was my way of, because I know it's big, because there was like 4 different, there was like 4 other potential what's that called? People that was applying for that job, and they're only going to take one of them out of those 4. So I have to come up with a way that will make it more unique. So, and the guy, the CEO of US Legal Forum, was wanting a guy that younger, to kind of grow with them. So then what I did was just more of a presentation of what I was able to accomplish over the past few years, with Facebook ad, SEO, PPC, and he was just really impressed with that. So I didn't really do a lot of I guess more of a presentation of what I was accomplished in this field. So
okay, Tori, your first kind of like tech interview.
I'll just pivot off of what Dan said real quick. That in tech, everybody who applies to a job has to do a portfolio. The vast majority of the jobs there, so that's a way a lot of tech companies hire. I would advise everybody, by the way, to have something ready to go to demonstrate the impact or the value that you've created for who you work for. Nobody cares about what you did, like these were the tasks that I had completed my job. Don't nobody care about that. This is what I actually was able to build, make, change, grow, add more revenue, add more people, whatever the company cares about. And I just want to underline and bold that point that he makes. It's not just for entrepreneurs, it's anybody looking to be in a high performing environment. I think that's critical. In terms of my I won't go to my very first one. I'll try to align this with tech. I had 2, I would consider like types of tech interviews, and they were about 10 years apart, and the industry changed significantly between those 2. The first is I interviewed for the New York Times at the same time that I interviewed for USA Today, to be what they called at the time a multimedia journalist. I was a front-end developer, and they didn't know they didn't really have a process yet. It was still a new thing. They knew they needed someone like me, but they didn't know how to evaluate me. So they had me go through, it's still funny to me to this day, I went through a copy editor's interview process, even though I was a front-end engineer. So I had to do like a spelling test and a current events test and rewrite copy and do photo editing. Just so happened I knew all that stuff. But it was so weird. And I told them that, by the way. I was like, this is very strange for what you're wanting me to do, but they were still trying to get off the ground. And then 10 years later, coming to Facebook, they of course had their act together. And my interview there was very technical, even for a designer. So I had to go through a presentation, like 3 projects that demonstrate like how I was able to take a problem, create a solution, what impact that solution had on the business. In my case, that was USA Today. So that was one part. Another part of that technical for a designer interview is a whiteboard exercise. So they literally get you in a room with a marker and another designer, and we say, we're going to design something. I think for me, it was a remote control. We're going to design a remote control in 2015. And so I had to know what questions to ask. So who is the remote control for? What television is it going with? Where will the person be? Is it for the living room, for the bedroom? Like, is there any, do we know what market will it be in? Like, I had to know to ask all these questions to understand what I was really designing. Then I had to walk them through my problem solving process. This is how I think about what's possible. This is the technology that's available. Here's some solutions I would want to test. Here's how I would narrow them down. I had to just walk them through it, tell a story. It was an interactive, back and forth discussion. And that was probably the most technical part. We did some other things, like they looked at my background and portfolio, and I had to explain decisions that I made. But it was kind of surprising to me that, something we traditionally thought of as a creative endeavor, like design, still had a big technical component. It's just that it wasn't writing code, which I was used to. It was understanding the way that I thought and having a structured thought process, and them believing that whatever problem they would put in front of me, it wouldn't be too ambiguous for me to start to break down and solve. So that was the first like technical interview I had, and I must have done a good job because they made me an offer.
That's so funny that you had a copy editors, like what? So you basically pioneered the whole tech space. Where did you say? USA Today?
That was New York Times.
New York Times. Like, so we can thank Tori, I'm assuming, for even having the job description for techie. So thank you, Tori. I love that you said the processes, breaking down the processes, because I think a lot of times just techies or non-techies, it's really important to think about the processes. Like, how is this going to work? Who is this going to be for? Because we don't just build technology or use technology for one reason or one domain. And so, I recently got my grandma a Facebook portal, and it's so funny because with the portal, it'll like the technology, it follows you around the room. Right. So I said, Ma, you can move. You don't have to sit in one spot. So we're all on this portal, my cousins and everything. And I'm like watching my grandma. She walks to one end of the room and stands in the corner. She turns around and looks at the portal. Then she walks back and walks to the other, and then she sits down and she says, "Yep, it does follow you." She was actually testing this out. I was like, my grandpa is a whole engineer out here, and I didn't realize. But like thinking about who's going to be using these products and how they're going to use them. Erica, so can you tell us a little bit about your first kind of technical interview?
Yeah, I would. I'm probably going to reference the one from the first startup that I worked for. Well, I'm calling it a startup, but they had raised $300 million from Google Ventures. So they weren't like an early stage startup. But so I would say prior to any interview, but especially that one, I do a lot of research. So I think it's always important to like show some sort of initiative in your interviews, like if you really want to stand out. And I did not realize that a lot of people don't do research before their interviews, like research the company beforehand. Consider looking at any of their like recent articles, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, and maybe mentioning some of those things during your interview. So like if the company is having a problem, like some sort of issue that maybe that they've made public, like with their technology or something like that, or with their end users, or maybe they've had some sort of major announcement or something like that you want to kind of tie into your interview, just to show that you've done the research, you've gone the extra step. In my interview specifically, this was with an oncology analytics startup based out of New York. And they had just acquired oncology EMR, like a smaller like cancer technology. So that I was familiar with. So during my interview, I talked about, I asked some questions about the acquisition of that platform, how they plan to roll out the system to their new like 200 clinics, because with that acquisition brought an additional 200 customers for them. And then I also kind of talked about my experience in working with the types of customers that they had just acquired, basically. So just kind of showing them that I had the initiative, I did the research, and then also showing them that I had the experience. And I only knew a little bit about their products, but I was able to kind of talk about like how we could implement it, any issues that some of the healthcare providers, like the nurses and the doctors that actually use the platform, that they might be having. So that's the first thing I would say. I would also say how be mindful of how you manage the interview process. And what I mean by that is it could be a signal if you're responding slowly to the recruiter or the hiring manager, or how you're responding to them. So take all of that into consideration. I typically try to respond very quickly. So within that interview, I try to respond very, very quickly. And I always made sure that there were no errors like in my responses to them. So keeping things professional, but once again, just some things that, a lot of people don't think about, but they can definitely impact whether or not that organization will want to work with you. So.
Nice. It sounds like you do a lot of research. I might need to, hire you as my PR person when it comes to talking to these different companies, like help me out with some of this, some ideas around the type of research I need to do. My very first tech interview, it was so bad. So I actually had one of those like coding interviews. I knew nothing about this. Nobody gave me a heads up. I just went in. Later, I found out I actually would have like test anxiety. I didn't know this was a thing that happened my entire life. I just dealt with it. Yeah. So they gave me like this Google Doc, and this person is watching me code, which was the most like, if you're like, for the developers out there, like nobody sits and watches you code. So this is some processes that I think a lot of companies are kind of changing and moving away from. But yeah, at that time, this was like the beginning of this. So I'm sitting in this Google Doc, like trying to write out this code, and the connection was bad. I couldn't hear the interviewer. And I was like, I did terrible. And after that, I was like, you know what? I'm probably never going to see this person again. I felt bad. I was in my feelings, ate some Chick-fil-A. And then I got it together. I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep having these interviews because eventually I got to get better. So I did not do any research. That probably would have helped me some. But I think even just knowing myself and knowing about that test anxiety helped me out in future interviews. Okay, so we're talking about, for those people who are just now tuning in, we have an amazing group of panelists from different areas in tech. We've all, taken our journey in tech, coming from different fields, venturing out to other fields. And so thank you all for joining us. This is part of our Tech Office Hours presentation. All right. So the next question I want to ask, I want to specifically ask Dan. All right. So what specific advice would you give a college student, a recent college grad wanting to start a career in tech?
I think honestly, in any career, you just got to find a mentor, someone that you look up to. That was the biggest thing that I have growing up. I have a mentor that I can relate to. So he kind of gave me advice of what direction I wanted to. So I would suggest find you let's say you wanted to become like Dr. Nashley. So I know she might not have a lot of time for you, but figure out a way to help her to get her attention, for her to give you some advice. I think that's probably the best thing you would want it to do. And that's what I did. I found someone that are really successful at what they do, even in real estate and construction. Like I'm really good at connecting with people, building relationship with them. Like I know enough in real estate, but I found people that are way smarter than me in real estate that get me to where I'm at today. And even in construction, like I know enough about construction, but even to own to become a GC right now is, connecting with people that are smarter than me in that field. Just, having a mentor will help you a lot. So.
Yes, indeed. Mentorship is so important. I'm really happy that you brought that up about mentorship. And you mentioned Dr. Nashley, who is an amazing person and mentor. And one of the things I learned from Michelle Obama was actually you don't have to have direct contact with your mentors. Like you can follow them on Twitter, you can follow them in the New York Times, like wherever, kind of follow their career paths. And so since you brought up mentorship, have you ever how do you get mentors? So for myself, I've actually asked people to be my mentor, and then other mentors have actually found me. And I'll leave this question open. Dan, you can begin, and we can, anyone else who wants to chime in on this, finding mentors.
Well, I have a mentor, he's like an advisor for my mom. So he saw me as a kid, been just a hustler. So then he just took me on and kind of helped mentor me. But a lot of the time, especially in real estate and construction, I have to pay I pay a lot of money to go to a mastermind for them to mentor me and stuff like that. But, a lot of people might not be in my position to have the money to, pay for a mastermind or mentorship. What I would recommend is, coming to Bean Pass Tech Hours, getting those mentorship, and even just following people on social media, just taking their advice, and going to conference. I think going to conference, finding, mentor doesn't have to be hold up, buddy. Doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be someone's at like Dr. Nash. It could be a peer mentor, at the same level you are. They can really guide you in the directions that you wanted to go to. So.
Thank you, Dan. And I know you're doing some mentoring right now with your nephew. That's totally fine. We understand we all living in this virtual world. And so, no, I this is not a commercial, but I am going to plug this since Dan brought it up. The Bean Path does offer mentorship, especially for youth. So check out our website. There's some information on there for our CTO to go program, as well as our youth mentoring, and then tech office hours, what we're doing right now, the presentation portion of it. So if you can't find a mentor out there, if you don't know who to follow on Twitter, you can follow me, and I'll point you in the direction of some people. But make sure you reach out to the Bean Path, because we do, connect people with mentors and provide mentorship through with some of our team members in the Bean Path as well. Tori, did you have something?
Yeah, I really like that point that the meta point you both are making, which is you don't live a lifestyle, you don't have a life where there's people in your immediate circle, then the internet provides you an extended perspective that's different from your own, which could be great. And actually, I spend a lot of time on YouTube. It's one of our major competitors, so I spend a lot of time analyzing them. And I follow a bunch of people that I listen to about different subjects I'm interested in. Right now, I'm really interested in AR and VR. And so I follow a bunch of creators in that space, and I listen to what they have to say, give me really good insights and ways of thinking. But I also want to make a meta point, which is for anybody listening, especially young folks. I think about mentorship not just for what I do for a career. My career is a part of my whole life. So I have people I look up to help with my personal spiritual development. I have men that I look up to. I want to understand, I'm unmarried and single, but I want to understand how to be a great husband and father. I have people I look up to in that regard. And then I have people from a career standpoint who I look up to both as role models, people I aspire to be like, but also people who I believe can help me get there. I also have happened to live a life when I think about it. I always, to Dan's point about conferences, I always found myself around people and they kind of looked at me as that kid. They're like, you're gonna be something. I want to be involved with you. So it's like, I don't know, like people just I kind of had that vibe, and not everybody has that. I don't know what that is, but I took advantage of that. I was like, okay, cool. You want to invest your time in me? I'm happy to allow that to happen. And these people have come from all walks of life. But I want to make that meta point because I grew up in a two-parent household. We were middle lower class. Like we didn't make a lot of money, but you don't need a lot of money in Mississippi at that time to do all right. But then when I turned 15, both my parents got divorced. They both had some issues, and I've been homeless for a while, and then eventually living with my grandmother. And if I didn't have that, if it wasn't for the internet and a view that I will seek my own direction. Like I will find a life that I want and I will figure out how to get there. I think I would have been in really bad shape because I never saw my world being limited to my town in Mississippi. I wasn't one of those people like, oh, I can't wait to leave Mississippi. I love Mississippi, it was fine. But I never thought of myself being constrained to Mississippi. I always thought I had limitless possibilities, just the way I was raised. And so when I found myself in a position where I had no support, no parental support, no financial support, I still thought to myself, there are people who have managed to make it through the problems that I'm facing. One of my biggest refrains, and I'll leave it at this, is I am not the first person in the world to go through this problem. I don't care what it is. If it's a coding problem, if it's an interview problem, if it's a financial problem, I'm like, I'm not the first person to go through this. Somebody else has went through this. And as the internet has matured, it's easier for me to ask Google about this problem and find other people who've gone through said problem. So I find that these things that frankly weren't available to our parents and to our grandparents, which is this knowledge that extends beyond our lived experience, is extraordinarily powerful. So I don't cut a lot of slack for young people nowadays, because I'm like, y'all got so much access to experience that is just unbelievable if you allow yourself to access it and don't limit yourself by saying things like, this isn't for me, or this person doesn't come from my culture, so they can't understand. I've learned things about technology from people halfway around the world. A bunch of coders back in the day in Amsterdam and some of those countries over there, they used to be super dope in design. I learned a bunch from those guys. And they never knew, this was back when we used to be on chat rooms and stuff. They never knew I was a young Black kid from Mississippi. I was just asking questions. So my perspective there is, finding a mentor can be a very intentional process. You go and you find structured programs. It can also be quite an unstructured process where you simply seek to find people who are doing what you want to do, follow their journey, as you all mentioned, and also be clear to encompass your whole life. And don't just think of yourself as an object in a career. You're a full person. And it's important that you bring the fullness of what you want to be to a job, or else you won't be good for it for very long.
Tori, I just wanted to snap all throughout. So you dropped so many gems. One of the things that I want to point out is that this is why these kind of conversations, these kind of panels are important for us to do, not just with the Bean Path, but everywhere, because you see a diverse group of people here who are doing some amazing things and have done some amazing things in tech and beyond. And a lot of times, especially with our youth, and I've even had people who are older than me, they've come up to me and tell me how my journey has inspired them. I mean, I always say, like, you can't be what you can't see. And that's not to be like in a negative way, but more so some people actually don't realize that it's possible for them to work at Facebook or be a pioneer at Facebook or pioneer in health or be an entrepreneur because they haven't seen it. They haven't been exposed. So everybody out there listening, share this with somebody, first of all, because somebody needs it. But also, you know, us as mentors, going out and taking the initiative to you said toward people poured into you, they saw something in you. And so, yeah, it was in you to go, hey, you're trying to talk to me weekly so I can, so you can keep pouring into me. And so just encouraging those kind of things. The other thing I want to say is I totally agree with I'm so happy you touched on having different kinds of mentors, because I have a food mentor. I'm not lying. Like, I have somebody I call and I'm like, hey, I'm going to San Diego. What should I eat? So like I have so many people that I talk to that help me in different areas, because food is life. Food is bae. All right. So Erica, did you have anything you wanted to add to the conversation around mentorship?
No, I think they pretty much said it all. The only thing that I was going to say was kind of just to piggyback off what Tori said, be open to working with any kind of mentor. Like, I think a huge mistake that I made when I first left Mississippi, I was looking for like only Black mentors. Like, I was like, I only want Black mentors. I only want to work with people who look like me. And that, I won't say that was a mistake, but that was definitely a lesson learned. Like, there are people from all walks of life that want to help and that want to pour into you, and that just have a different lens and can provide sort of different experiences and different types of knowledge that maybe Black mentors may not have, or maybe they do have, but maybe it may not be enough of those Black mentors like to sort of like go around. So that was just one thing that I definitely wanted to share. And just because someone doesn't look like you, it doesn't mean that they can't understand like certain experiences and things like that. I was also going to mention that, Tori, you mentioned like finding a mentor online. I definitely agree. There's so many people throughout my entrepreneurship journey that I've reached out to on LinkedIn, reached out to on Twitter, and they respond, once again, being very respectful of people's time. So when you are asking for mentorship, have some specific things that, like some specific areas that you actually want to talk about. So, if you reach out to someone, it shouldn't be a general, like, hey, can we talk? I want you to be my mentor. It would be more of, hey, I was reading about your journey in launching MedHall, and I also saw that you went to Wisconsin and majored in biology. I'm a biology major, and I'm trying to figure out how I transition from biology to entrepreneurship, or like whatever it is. Have very specific like questions starting off, and then if you see that person is very interested in continuing to talk to you, say, hey, would you be interested in talking like once a month? Would that be okay if I kept you updated and maybe we had a call like once a month? And then over time, continue to build that relationship. But I think what everybody else said has been great. So.
Yes, like the diverse perspectives, reaching out to people, doing your research, like all of these things are so important. Sometimes it can be really intimidating asking somebody to be a mentor. So I am happy, when I'm a super extrovert. I don't know if y'all can tell, but so I've never really had an issue with like walking up to people and talking to them, but I do have a lot of introverted friends who do not like that. And so sending an email, hitting somebody up on Twitter, don't, shoot your shot. Shooting your shot is not just about finding bae. Shooting your shot is about finding a job, finding, your next step in life, figuring out what you want to eat in San Diego. I don't know, but shoot your shot. That's what I'm going to say. All right. So y'all, this conversation has been so good. We're almost like at an hour. I cannot believe we've almost been talking for an hour. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to start taking some questions from the audience. We have some people who are tuning in on different platforms. So I'm gonna just throw out some of these questions. I know we have about 15 more minutes and I wanna make sure we have time for all the questions that we get in. So we're gonna try to keep our answers to about 30 to 45 seconds to make sure we can get through, because we got a lot of questions that's come in. All right, so our first question is for Dan. Are you still in tech? And if not, what experiences do you feel contributed to you entering or exiting the field?
Well, I'm technically still in tech. I mean, I still manage all of our website design, all of the, marketing for a company, especially for real estate and construction side. So I do a lot of business developments and anything related to tech. Yes.
Nice. All right. Our next question is from DJ, and this is from the BeamPath live stream. So DJ didn't pose this question to anyone, but I'm gonna specifically call Erica out on this one. Erica. All right. So how did you get into tech, and was it an interview you just killed? Was it a mentor, or was it something that somebody saw in you?
That's so funny because going back to the hospital, when I first got out of undergrad, I was a pharmacy technician in a hospital. And I saw that they had open jobs for the technology department within the health system. And I applied for that role 7 times, literally the exact same role, because in the description of the role, I felt like I fit everything or exceeded everything. So, and I really wanted that job. Like I don't take no's easily. So unless it's a no that makes sense, but I try to like put myself in situations where I look for opportunities that are very fitting for me. So yeah, I applied for this job 7 times, and like literally on the 7th time, that was finally when I got a call back from the hiring manager. And I've always been just super upfront, like, hey, my experience is not in tech directly, but here's where I think I can help. Here's how I learn, whatever it is. But for that particular role, they were actually not looking for people that had a technical background, but who were tech savvy, but that had a clinical background, and they were interested in transitioning from the clinical realm to the technology realm. So if you can look for opportunities like that, there are a lot of them out there. So even if you are like becoming like a project manager or something like that for a technology vendor, that's a great way. I've seen a lot of folks go from like project manager to product manager, in tech, and go from technical project manager to engineer as well. So that was sort of my journey.
It's the persistence and consistency for me, sis. She was like, no, it's 6 times no. You gonna get me on this 7th time.
I was like, y'all are gonna give me this job. I'm gonna
get this job. Yeah, I love that. All right, so DJ, first of all, I don't know who DJ is, but DJ is all in this conversation, and I'm here for it. Thank you, DJ, for all the questions. All right, so I'll take this one actually. So it says, the tech world moves fast. How do you set goals for yourself, and what are your goals? So DJ, I don't know what I want to do in 10 years or in 5 years. I kind of just go in the moment. So what does technology look like in 5 years? What's needed now? What do I want to learn? That's the way that I look at it. So unless I'm working on a specific project. So for instance, last year, I've always wanted to do voiceover for cartoons. I did not know that it was actually called voiceover. I just used to walk around the house making all these funny voices and imitating people, and I still do that. Anyway, so last year, I actually learned how to do animation. I would not consider myself an artist with drawing and all that. But I don't know, something about the pandemic, I guess. But I sought out to learn how to animate characters, and that's what I did. And so I started making these little like cartoon, like short videos. And so now I'm working on a larger production. And so while that isn't like specifically coding, there's some coding involved in it. It's still like a part of being a techie, I guess. And so I just wanted to do it. So I did it. So it's not so much about, for me, like, how do I set goals? It's like, what am I interested in? Or something sparks my attention. I don't like try to force it. I hope that was helpful, DJ. All right, so our next question is for Tori. Tori, for your first interview with the New York Times, did you feel that you were thought of as someone who they thought was less qualified to somewhat kind of like weed you out, or did that help you know what to expect in your career as far as having to work harder or better or smarter?
I definitely have been in both camps where I felt like I was undervalued and people didn't really take me seriously. But no, in the New York Times case, I happened to just hit this moment where, you know, sometimes your success is always a result of you need to take advantage of opportunities. Always your hard work and trying to be prepared is going to what land you to position. But let's just be honest. Sometimes it's what some refer to as luck. And I just say it's the evolution of technology. So I happen to have come of age at a moment where this intersection between media and news and technology was just getting off the ground, and almost nobody had experience in both. So I had experience in media from my time at NPR and WPRL and Alcorn, and I was a self-taught front-end developer. So it's like I had these two worlds, and it was like maybe a unicorn. So I had, in the same 2-week period, I had an interview set up with NPR National, the New York Times, and USA Today. I flew across the country to do these interviews in a 2-week span. So I felt like everybody and mama wanted me. So when I walked into the New York Times, I was like, I am that dude. And so that was just my attitude. And like, and it was a little cocky, I'm not gonna lie, but people liked it. They liked the confidence that I brought to the thing. I can do what you're expecting me to do. And what was funny is I ran through a series, and I met everybody in New York Times today, including the publisher at the time. And I never forget, because it was such a juxtaposition. He was my last interview today. It was very casual. He was kind of like just talking basic questions. He wasn't gonna make the hiring decision. That was gonna be the other people that I had talked to. So he was just kind of going through a formality. But when he stuck his hand out and shook my hand, he looked at me and spoke to me in a way where it was clear he wanted me as a part of the New York Times. And I had never experienced that from a white man in my entire life. In my entire life, I have never been in a room with a white man where he was like, I want you to be a part of what I'm making. And so growing up and raised in Mississippi, especially in a segregated town like Port Gibson, if I was a different kind of person, that probably would have shook me, or I would have been suspicious or be like, what is the trick? What's going on here? But no, my skills was my hook. Like I was good. And so he knew I was good. So I wasn't undervalued, but so I guess my point I'm making is I expected to be, but I wasn't. And that kind of threw me. And if I wasn't prepared, that would have messed me up too. So both are, and I've been on both sides, be prepared for either. But a person's initial perception of you is not necessarily the future of your reality, good or bad. Keep that in mind.
Thank you, Tori. So it's the confidence for me. Now, I don't know about the whole Mamba mentality of like, you got it, you know, but I agree. The confidence. So like, you know what you know. That's one of the things I've learned over the years. You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And so don't try to fake it, especially when it comes to tech, because you can get somebody will call you out real quick. All right. But you have to be confident in what it is that you know. And when you don't, you just say that. And if people make you feel bad for that, then that's probably not a place you want to be, or somebody you want to be your mentor. And so, you know, just something to think about. All right, so here's another question. It says, this is from Elliot. It says, do you advise applying to a large number of positions, or should I focus on finding a recruiter? How do you suggest finding jobs to apply for, or how should I get found by recruiters? So I'm gonna just throw it out there, I'll let somebody answer, but really quickly, I just wanna say, Elliot, get on LinkedIn. The recruiters are looking for you, because Elliot, just send us your email address, because I have about 45 recruiters in my inbox right now I can send to you. So make sure you have a LinkedIn set up. And I would say apply for all the jobs that you think you want to work for, even the ones you don't think that you don't meet the requirements for, but be prepared for those. Like, you know, you may have some jobs you don't really want, but apply for those, get the practice with the interviews. So that way, when you are applying for a job that you really, really want, you'll be prepared for that. Does anybody else want to add anything to that?
I'll just make this super quick. I just helped somebody in this process. Took them about a year to transition careers into tech. The best thing that we did in working together was have him go and actually connect on LinkedIn with people who are already doing the job, not necessarily the recruiter, and then directly ask for a referral. So a lot of people aren't aware that a lot of companies, not just tech companies, offer internal employees bonuses for referring people to jobs. At most tech companies, that's anywhere between $2,000 and $7,000 to refer somebody who gets the job. So if you see, and if you're comfortable, if you're a young Black man and I'm comfortable that other Black people would see my resume and say, yeah, man, I went to HBCU, and they'll respect that. Connect with them, but don't be shy to connect with anybody. And literally introduce yourself, connect with them, ask if you can talk to them, ask for that referral, man. Like he did it. He ended up getting a job in Amazon Robotics, and the dude like salary increased 4x because he was bold enough to say, connect with an employee and say, I'm qualified for this role. Would you refer me? There's a bunch of stuff you can find out about this if you just Google it. But that is the most clear, direct path to a job that I can think of, and I've just seen it work. So just one suggestion. And also, yeah, if you're not on LinkedIn, you're playing games.
Look, low key, we need to start like a beam path, like techie poetry session, because it's so much. Like I just want to snap. Y'all really been killing this. Like I just want to keep snapping because there's so many gems in this. Okay, so I'm gonna pose this question to Dan, and again, everybody else can chime in. We have a few more minutes. All right, so well, actually, to all the panelists. So in real estate / construction, what technical gaps do you see that need to be filled?
In text, or are you talking about in text? Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So in real estate or construction, what technical gaps do you see that need to be filled?
That need to be filled. Yeah, there's, especially in construction right now, what I'm trying to look into is doing like a, I know it sounds probably off topic, but like, what I've been looking at is like 3D printed homes and stuff like that. I feel could be, because the labor shortage is getting crazy in constructions. I think there's the demand for housing and stuff like that in constructions. And if we can definitely do like a 3D printed home, I think that's something I wanted to do in Mississippi, like the first company to print like a 3D printed home in Mississippi. I think that'd be cool to save some time. But there's not a lot of tech in construction, to be honest with you. A lot of them are just labor works. But I could definitely see there is a demand in, techs and real estate and construction. I just to build like a process, a system for a company. What I've been doing is I've been building like a CRM for a company that just something that's unique. Something unique for a company, because we have a lot of, because I'm big on database. I'm really good at database. I'm doing a lot of stuff behind the scene for a company too. But I hope that answers the question. Does that really answer the questions, or is that not?
No, I think a couple of people I see in the chat are saying there's some apps out there for that. I just want to, for myself, if you figure out how to get us 3 homes printed in Mississippi, let your girl know, because
I'm talking to a guy right now. We actually looking at doing a 3D printed home down south in I think close to New Orleans. There's a city called like Pikachu or something like that in Mississippi. I never been to yet. It's probably like golf forts or Biloxi and stuff like that. They want to do like a 3D printed home. They started in Texas and like in California and stuff like that. I think that'd be cool to bring it to Mississippi. There's a lot of benefits for doing 3D printed home, which I can really see something that we can definitely do in Mississippi. But just to get people on board, which is gonna take a lot of time, especially in Mississippi.
That ain't no problem, Dan. That ain't no problem. You're talking to the right person. I will. Yeah. Listen, we're gonna talk offline about this, because I'm very interested in this 3D home. All right, y'all. So listen, so we are out of time. Can y'all believe we've been talking for an hour? So before we go, I think we have about a minute. I just want to make sure we get everybody all the information you want to share. So we just go through with all the panelists. You have a Twitter. People out here looking for mentors now. Tori, opened it up. So just reach out to you. So if you all could, share your Twitter, your handles, whatever it is, how can people get in contact with you? We'll start with Tori.
Sure, I'm at Tori Hargro on Twitter. That's probably the best way. Also at Tori Hargro on Facebook, verified on both. It'll be me. You'll see it.
Oh, okay. With the little flex at the end. Okay, Tori, I'm gonna need whoever your verification person was. I'm gonna need to contact. Erica.
Yep, I'm at Plybeah on Twitter, not verified, and I'm also on LinkedIn as well.
Not verified for me, sis. Me too. Dan.
Yes, I'm mostly on Instagrams at Sales to Dan, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm more active on Facebook than LinkedIn. So I mean, I do most of my business on Facebook and Instagram. So you guys can find me on there as well. Not on Twitter though. I'm not really active on Twitter as much because just I haven't really been active in the tech industry since I quit my job, but mostly Facebook and Instagram. So if you guys wanted to find me, I'm happy to mentor you guys, and especially an entrepreneur or switching career from tech to real estate or anything. I'm happy to get lunch with you, or coffee, or get on a Zoom call. Sorry, today just been like I'm a little like that well, so that's why I haven't really talked as much. So yeah.
Oh no, Dan, you've been dropping gems. I don't know what your regular day is like, but if it's better than this, then we're gonna have to have you back next time. All right, so I'm Dr. Amber. I've been the host of panels here. So I am actually the interim COO for the Beam Path. Very excited to be joining the Beam Path team. You can find me on Instagram, call me Rudy, or the Cadote Life, and also on Twitter, I call me Rudy. I am not that active on Instagram. on LinkedIn. Shout out to all the recruiters that are sitting in my inbox on red. So thank you all so much for tuning in to this Tech Office Hours panels today. Thank you to the panelists. Y'all, I'm gonna be reaching out to y'all for some mentorship, and definitely looking forward to you all doing more with the Beam Path in the future. So before we go though, I want to if we could just have a moment of silence. I know that we played a tribute video in the beginning, and to commemorate the lives lost on 9/11, and so we just want to take the last minute, and we'll close out and end the live from there. All right. Thank you all so much. Y'all have a good rest of your afternoons.
All right, thank you guys.
Amber. Thank you, everybody.